All right, today we are diving into a story that's just epic. We're talking about the biblical book of Joshua. And let me tell you, it's got everything: intense battles, incredible promises, and this monumental task of taking a 40-year-old dream and making it real. A brand new leader has to step up and guide an entire nation from wandering in the desert into a land they have to fight for inch by inch.
And it all kicks off with these words. Just imagine hearing that. The legend himself, Moses, is gone. You're part of this new generation. You're standing on the banks of a river, staring across at a land filled with enemies. And the guy in charge, Joshua, has just been told, go take it. No pressure, right? So this is where our story really begins, with this massive handoff of leadership. You have to understand, this is a huge moment. Israel is shifting from decades of, just surviving in the wilderness to a full-on, dangerous mission of conquest.
And to really get a handle on this, you got to see the difference between these two guys. You had Moses, the lawgiver. His whole job was to lead Israel out of Egypt. And his big, defining miracle was parting the Red Sea. But Joshua, he's a commander. His job is to lead the people into their new home. He's not receiving the law, he's supposed to live by it. And, as you'll see, he gets his own water parting moment at the Jordan River. Pretty cool parallel, huh? Now, you can't send a guy on a mission like this empty-handed. So Joshua gets this powerful three-part promise. First, the land itself is guaranteed. Second, he's promised total victory in battle. But this third one, this is the real game changer. The promise that God would be with him, just like he was with Moses. I mean, that's the foundation for everything that's about to happen. Okay, promise secured. Now the action starts. And it starts with a bang. The Israelites cross the Jordan River on dry ground, a huge callback to Moses' miracle at the Red Sea, and they set their sights on their very first target, the legendary walled city of Jericho. So the battle plan they're given for Jericho is, well, it's bizarre. There are no siege towers, no battering rams. The plan is literally walking. For 6 days, they just march around the city in total silence. Then on day 7, they circle it 7 times, the priests blow their trumpets, everyone lets out a massive shout, and the walls are just supposed to fall down. Talk about a test of faith over military strategy. And the craziest part? It works. They follow these weird instructions perfectly, and just like they were told, the walls of Jericho just collapse. It's a stunning, miraculous victory. The only people who are spared are Rahab and her family because she had helped the Israelite spies, and they kept their promise to her. But right after this incredible high comes a crushing low. They move on to attack this tiny little town called Ai, and they get routed, utterly defeated. It's a total shock. So what happened? Well, it turns out one man, a guy named Achan, had disobeyed a direct order and secretly stole some loot from Jericho. And that one act of disobedience brought disaster on the entire nation. So after they deal with that internal sin and get right with their covenant, the momentum comes roaring back. What follows is just this lightning-fast series of military campaigns. It's a blitz that sweeps through the southern part of the land and then wheels around to take on a whole coalition of kings in the north. And in the middle of this southern campaign, we get one of the wildest moments in the whole book. Joshua is in the heat of this massive battle against 5 kings, and he realizes he's running out of daylight. So he prays this audacious prayer for the sun and the moon to literally stop in the sky. And the text says they did. The day got longer, and Israel won the battle. I mean, what a sign of divine support. So after all these campaigns, what's the final score? The book gives us a tally. 31. That's how many kings Joshua and the Israelites defeated. 31 fortified cities and their armies. It's just a staggering number that really drives home the scale of their success.
Okay, so with the major fighting done, the whole story kind of shifts gears. The war might be over, but the promise isn't totally fulfilled until everyone gets their piece of the pie. So now, an older Joshua has to tackle this enormous logistical problem: how to divide up an entire country. So everybody gathers at this place called Shiloh, and they start divvying up the rest of the land by casting lots. The big tribes like Judah and the house of Joseph get these huge territories. And for the first time, individual families have a piece of ground they can finally call their own. The promise is becoming real. And right in the middle of all this map-making, you get this amazing personal story. A guy named Caleb, who was one of the original spies with Joshua like 45 years earlier, steps up. He's 85 years old now, and he basically tells Joshua, hey, I'm just as ready for a fight today as I was back then. So give me that tough hill country full of giants that God promised me all those years ago. What a legend. It's an incredible picture of faith that just doesn't fade.
And while they're building this new society, they create something really ahead of its time, the cities of refuge. The idea was if you accidentally killed someone, you could run to one of these 6 cities and be safe. It was a way to stop the whole cycle of blood feuds and revenge killings and make sure there was a fair trial, a really crucial step toward building a just society.
And this brings us to the final act. Joshua is an old man. His battles are over, and he pulls the entire nation together one last time. He knows the fighting for land is finished, but the real struggle, the fight to stay faithful, is just getting started.
His farewell speech is incredibly powerful. He stands before them and says, "Look, you guys have seen it with your own eyes. Not one single good promise from God has failed." But then he flips the coin. He gives them this really stark warning that says, just as all the good stuff came true, if you turn your backs on this covenant, all the warnings will come true too. The stakes couldn't be clearer. And it all builds to this moment, one of the most famous lines in the whole book. Joshua just draws a line in the sand. He tells the people, you can't sit on the fence anymore. Choose, today, who are you going to serve? And then he makes it personal, making this powerful, resolute stand for himself and his family. It's really the moral peak of the entire story. So, in the end, the mission is complete. The land is secure, the fighting has stopped, and every promise made to that generation has been kept. But Joshua's final challenge just kind of hangs in the air, leaving us with this huge question. The land was theirs, but would their hearts stand the right place? The next generation, would they keep their end of the bargain? And that question is the perfect setup for the turbulent story that comes next.